Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. I had to check to make sure I had my mic set up okay, but I do. A couple of things. I want to apologize. I usually get out a video every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. It's for my Substack people. Well, Thursday I usually don't do a video because I have the Wednesday wrap up. But last night, we had horrific thunderstorms here in the Ozarks and Northwest Arkansas, flooding, heavy rain, lightning. And about 8 p.m., my power went out. And where I live, I'm in a rural area. So if it ever sprinkles, the power basically goes out. The power went out and it stayed out for 5 hours. It booted back up about 1:30 a.m. Laying in bed, also boom, all the lights came back on. So I had the candles and everything. So I was obviously not able to make a video. And it's funny how dependent we are upon electricity in modern living, because when it goes all out, I don't know if you guys experience that frequently. It's like, oh, okay, I'll check my phone, but the problem is where I live, I'm not in cell phone range. I don't get a signal, so I have to go through the internet, and my router was down, so I had no way of calling anyone, no way to text. It's dark in the house. I got candles up, but that's about it. So it's like, okay, what do I do now? There's nothing to do. It's dark in the home, and it was pouring, raining, so I couldn't go outside very well. So yeah, we had a lot of storms, tornado warnings, and I think a couple of days ago, St. Louis got hit by some tornadoes. So this is not unusual for this time of year. May is our wettest season in Arkansas, and we've got a lot of rain this year, which is, pluses and minuses. The plus is that it's going to be very green out. It's already beautiful out. The minus is the grass grows really fast. I have to mow that more. And then the storms create issues with power outages and localized flooding and all that. So that's what happened all last night. My power was out. And I want to thank you all for being here. I didn't know. Usually I do my shows on Friday. I have my Hillbilly Wrap Up. And then Wednesday night, I have my show with Z-Man, that Wednesday Wrap Up. It's a lot of fun. This week, we're doing it about generations and generational politics. We could talk about boomers and everything else. So that will be fun. And then on Thursdays, usually, not this week, but usually I do the Daylight Dispatch with Sasha. We're canceling it this week. She's got a prior commitment. She can't, she can't miss. So she's got to go to it. So no Daylight Dispatch this week, but we will do it the following week. And and then tonight, Tuesday nights, we have the roundtable. So if you're not, join Substack and can be part of our roundtables. It's a great community. And it's one of those things, even if you don't want to participate on the roundtable, you can watch it live, or you can watch it at your leisure. It's a private link on Rumble, and you're able to watch it later if you want to. There's a lot of great people involved. And then Friday, I have a video just to my Substack supporters. It's kind of a thank you. And I really do appreciate everyone that supports me on Substack. Substack is my main platform now. I used to be on Gumroad, but Gumroad, I didn't get banned. Gumroad was nice. I have nothing bad to say about Gumroad. The people there. It's just that their technology was not reliable. Many times I put out emails and people want to get them till a day or two later. And that's where I sent out like the show links. So I'm like, yeah, I can't have this. So I just went to Substack. It's a little bit more reliable. It's a bigger platform. So I migrated over to Substack. So I've done 3 migrations. I started on Patreon, then I went to Gumroad, and now I'm on Substack. So it's going to be Substack. I encourage you guys to join up. And the reason I'm doing this show, because I changed my schedule to try to drive more engagement. But I said, hey, if I get a certain amount of super chat revenue, I will do a bonus show. So yesterday, Monday, I did a bonus show because on Friday I made $50 was the goal. And then I said, well, yesterday I said, hey, if we can make a goal again, I'll do a show today on Tuesday. It's fun. I love doing it. But we came by like $30 or something. I'm like, that's okay. But thanks, guys. We'll try it next time. But then afterwards, I discovered Sasha sent me a text saying, hey, some power chats came in late, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to read that. And now the power chat. So that put me over 50. So I'm doing the show today. And I guess, yeah, hey, I'll do a show tomorrow morning too. If we could get 50 today, I'll do a show tomorrow morning. But no matter what, I'm doing Wednesday wrap up with Z-Man tomorrow. So Damian Thorne, and oh, by the way, if you want to send a power chat, super chat, Rumble has Rants, super chats on YouTube, and then there's a power chat link you see below. And then there's Streamelements has a tip feature. And no, I'm not banned on Streamelements. That was a false alarm. Feel free to leave a tip on there. I'm in Streamelements now, so it's all good to go. One of the power chats I missed from yesterday, though, is $20. That put me over the top. Damien, thank you. Scott Adams has the same cancer and has announced he will pass this summer. I did see that. We'll talk a little bit about that. That is sad news. I think Scott Adams has done a lot of great things with his cartoon Dilbert. And, he was pretty interesting. He had some things I didn't agree with him on. And he's been through a tough time. He married a very young woman that was an Instagram e-thought or whatever. I looked it up. Scott Adams turned 68 this year, and his ex-wife was born in 1988. I mean, people think it's weird with me and Sasha, but Sasha was born in 79. But so there's even a greater age difference there. But that marriage didn't work, and I think it was tough on Scott. And then Scott's had other physical problems with arthritis, and I think he's had some back issues. And yes, now it was announced that he said he's been holding off the announcement. He didn't know when to announce it. And I kind of get it, because he said once you announce you have like terminal cancer, it changes the way people look at you. And he just wanted to do his shows. I think he does a morning coffee show or something. So he just wanted to go on and do that without, being labeled as the cancer guy. But he decided he would eventually reveal it, and he thought it was good timing because the Biden's team, they decided to reveal it. As Scott Adams said, he's had this for a while, and this is I did my video on Monday, and a lot of people are saying, and I think it's pretty clear that Biden and the people around him, they knew he had cancer probably since the start of his presidency 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I have no doubt about it. This sort of thing just doesn't spring on you, especially when you're president. You get tested all the time. You get the best medical care. So it should have been, they probably knew this beforehand. And I bet he was being treated, but they hid it from the American people. And now, because Biden, he's in a terminal stage now. Once it spreads to the bone, there is no cure. There's treatments that could keep him alive for a while, and at Biden's age, he's 82 years old. So who knows? He could die of something else besides the cancer anyway. I think he's got a lot of issues, really, if you look at Biden. But Scott is relatively, compared to Biden, fairly, he's 68. That's not young, but young compared to Biden. And Scott said he will probably die this summer. I hope that's not the case. And I don't know why Scott said that, because, and maybe, I'm sure Scott knows more than I do. It's his body and his doctors. But based on treatments they have now, they have an ADT therapy treatment they use that typically can prolong your life like 5-10 years type of thing. So I don't know if maybe Scott's had this for a while, has been on that treatment, but it is something that it's not like pancreatic cancer that will kill you within 6 months no matter what. So I'm hoping that Scott's just pessimistic because even though I've had my differences with Scott, he blocked me. Uh, I do wish him well. I think he's a good guy. He was a guy that he was all in on the COVID vaccines. Remember, he was, he trusted the science and all that. And a lot of people warned him, and he got mad at those people. But I will give Scott this. Afterwards, he admitted, he was wrong. And most people, they don't do that. During that whole COVID era, there's so many people now that just want to forget about it, not admit that they were wrong about the whole thing. Uh, but it's had a lot of impact. A lot of people that were very scared of COVID and did all the masks and all the vaccines, a lot of them have ended up really in a sad situation. You never know. It's one of those taboo subjects they're probably never going to study for political reasons. Maybe one day they will if there's a relationship between the two. Obviously, we weren't able to have a free discussion about it because people that had concerns. I'm not saying these concerns were valid, but these were like doctors, people. The guy that invented the vaccine, this is gene therapies, wasn't considered a vaccine back in the past, by the way. It wasn't. But he gave caution it really shouldn't be used for certain things. But that was all censored, and the Biden regime really censored that. So we don't really have a lot of data, but a lot of people I've known that got very angry about people that were skeptical. A lot of them have passed on. Some people I was real good friends with, like my co-host Tina Veek. She had heart issues beforehand, and she had the vax. Her and I got into it, and then sadly she's passed on. I don't know what exactly caused it, but there's been a lot of people ended up in a bad way because maybe it's something unrelated, but it seems to be. And Biden, remember, he was yelling at everyone that if you didn't take the vaccine, you were going to have a long, dark winter and die. And he had that dark Brandon speech where it all looked like he was in hell. Guess he'll be living that for real pretty soon. But he was saying that his patience is running out and all that. I will never forgive that. So I put Biden and Scott Adams in different categories. I think Scott Adams, although he was in error sometimes, and I didn't agree with everything Scott would say. I think Scott, he did a great thing in life with his Dilbert cartoon. It was hilarious. He was talented. It was a funny cartoon. And I think overall he was a good guy. I mean, he was a little naive in some things, but as he got older, he sort of got a little bit more red-pilled on subjects. In fact, he got a lot of his cartoon or comic was banned from a lot of distribution because he started to look at race and who's doing the crime. And it was kind of a lights on moment for him. So good for him on that. And again, he submitted when he's been wrong. So I give him, credit for that. Whereas Biden has just been a very bad person his whole life. And I'm not one of those people that thinks just because you get cancer, that excuses all the bad things you've done in life. It doesn't mean I wish this on anyone, but when it's just not a thing that, oh, because I did all these horrific things in my life, now you got to feel sorry for me. Well, not really. I mean, I don't want Biden to have cancer. It's not something I would choose for him. But I put him in a different category than Scott Adams. Scott Adams, I feel bad for. I really do. Whereas Biden, I don't. Biden's also lived a whole life. He's 82 years old. So even if he didn't have cancer, I mean, how many more years you got? My dad lived to 88 and he was in good shape until the very end. And he had my family on my dad's side had a lot of longevity. My grandmother lived to 97 and then she just, died in her sleep. So that's good. So, but Biden's lived a long time. He's lived a full life, but he's been very corrupt. And he's been, I think, very evil in the things he's done to our country and to people. He comes across as like good old Joe, just like an uncle that tells jokes and smiles and eats ice cream. But really, when you look at all his shady past and the allegations of, he sniffs girls, and his daughter, where she said in his diary she felt uncomfortable because when she was 13, 14, he'd like to shower with her, and just very odd things there. Then all the crooked dealings with Ukraine, trying to destroy this country. He's never been, I don't think, a great guy. So I don't think cancer somehow makes Biden a great guy, and now we have to eulogize him as a wonderful man. He isn't, right? So cancer hits good people and hits bad people. And I think I put Scott Adams as a good person, as sad, and it hits bad people like Joe Biden. Oh, well, and that's kind of my philosophy on that. So, yeah, thank you for that, Damien. I do feel sorry for Scott. I really do. So, even though he did block me, and if you guys don't know why he blocked me, I guess he was having marital problems. His wife, that young he thought was running around, probably cheating on him. And Scott was real freaked out about COVID, hiding in his mansion. It was like that movie, Citizen Kane, when the guy has all the money in the world and he's just hiding in his little room. And I told Scott, man, you're worth like $75 million. You're beloved. You have fans all over the world. Just get away. Go to Cancun and get a 5-star resort and just, chill. Because he was spending his day, like all day, just getting mad at Twitter. And it was like, how do you end up like that? How do you end up like that when you're that wealthy and famous that you spend your day in a little room yelling at trolls on Twitter? I don't get it. I don't, he didn't have to live like that, right? So I just told him, man, just go out, do something. You're worth a lot of money. Get a private jet or 5 first class, get a margarita, get on the beach. I'm not advocating that, but if you're mad about your wife, hire a beautiful hooker down there. Not that I advocate that, but you can have a great time instead of yelling at people on Twitter all day. But that offended him, so he blocked me. But I didn't mean it meanly. I still believe that he should have, and that's the thing. You got to enjoy life while you can. You never know how long you have. You always assume, I'll live to be 100, but most people don't. And I don't know if living old is really a blessing anyway. My grandmother, I think I told the story, but when she's in her late 90s, I said, oh, you'll maybe make 100. My grandmother told me, I hope not. I hope not. That's a curse. So I guess she got her wish. She died at 97. So yeah, getting old like that or being old is a tough thing. So anyway, I wish Scott Adams well. Thank you, Damien. Damien put us over the goal of 50 for the day. So that's why I did the show today. And then follow up on that, I missed another one from North, $10. Thank you, North. So actually, I beat the goal yesterday by $20. That's really cool. Thank you. I think it would be a good thing that the person who said, when whites become a minority in America, it will be a good thing dies. Yeah, Biden has said a lot of really genocidal shit. And he's been an enemy, I think, to America and our people. So I don't think his cancer diagnosis somehow changes my opinion of him whatsoever. You got to be able to separate these two things. It doesn't mean I wish this on someone, but this doesn't make him a good person. I knew someone that used to work with people that had disabilities, and she made that point. She said you can see people with disabilities and they can be really great people and, super people. But just because you have a disability doesn't mean you're a great person. She said there's some people with disabilities that are assholes. They really are. And being disabled does not make you a great person and give you an excuse to treat people poorly. So, it's the same with cancer. So, I mean, my opinion on Joe hasn't changed any whatsoever. Lewis, $3. This is for today. Hey, 47 more dollars today, and we have a show I'll do a morning show tomorrow too. Tomorrow night I'm doing a show anyway, though, with Z-Man. In 2020, my 85-year-old grandfather was diagnosed with a stage 4 lung cancer that spread to his bones. Sorry about that. Fell into a coma 3 days later and died 3 days after that. right before all the COVID hysteria started. Well, in some ways, I think if you get it and you die that quick, it's somewhat of a blessing, I think, because you don't have to linger and suffer. So I'm sorry about your grandfather, but 85, that's a good length of a life, I think. Really, once you get over 80 or 85, I don't, even if you're healthy, I don't think your quality of life is that good, really. I really don't. It doesn't mean in my own life, I kind of plan like financially and everything. Maybe 80. That's where I'm going for. Live to 80. Then, if anything beyond that, it's just kind of bonus, but I don't consider, I hope to be doing this until I'm 80. I really do. I love doing streaming and stuff. But by the time I'm 80, I'll probably just, I won't kill myself or anything, but I'll probably just, check it in because I've lived enough, I think. So, that's why I kind of question if we should have politicians over the age of 80. I know some people can be somewhat sharp, but there is always a decline. So, but yeah, thank you for that. Okay, and hey, I got another $5. We're up to $8 right now. That's great. Let me see here. Does this work? I'm going to try to see if the comments will. StreamYard has this feature, show comments on stage. I don't know if this works, guys. So if you do a comment, I'll see if it puts it up on there. Here it is. Rams, have you heard about the return of the land community built in the Ozarks? They are creating an Orania-style community. I vaguely remember hearing something about that, but I'm not really sure. But that does sound interesting. You always have to in America. I don't know. It's not. I'll have to figure this. They have a new feature in StreamYard, show comments on stage. I'll just turn that off though, because I don't know if I'll figure that out offline. Yeah, because you can't, like, it's illegal to say you won't sell to someone that's black. That was ruled in the 50s or 40s, that one case. You should be able to, but you can't. So there might be some other ways around that legally. But yeah, I think anything that's good. I am for freedom of association. And if people want to live with whoever they want, I don't care. And that includes other races. Like if blacks want to have their own community, I'm really perfectly fine with that. Or say if they want to have their own restaurants that whites aren't allowed in, I'd be okay with that. But we should have the same right. And that would, I think, clear up a lot of problems. I mean, you could determine, right? If you want a restaurant, you could serve the blacks and whites, or everyone. It's up to you. Most would choose everyone, I think, because you want the money, unless certain groups create too much problems, then you might not. Thanks for that, though. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, we went over the Scott Adams. I had a clip on that, but I think I talked about that enough. So I'm not going to play Scott Adams' clip. I think most people know about that. Cernovich had a text on X, a post that I can agree with. Craven until the end. When Biden's wife died in a car accident, he dragged his grieving children to a press conference to display them to the media to garner sympathy for himself, all for political benefit. He used his drug-addicted son to launder money from a corrupt regime, thus Hunter in Ukraine. He repeatedly lied about his other son's cause of death. In 2020, his campaign was lost under the banner of the Fine People hoax. And then he worked to censor people. And anyway, Cernovich is kind of saying what I said. Biden's done a lot of bad things. And just because he has cancer, that doesn't absolve him of his bad things, or that somehow we need to say, oh, he was a great man now. I don't. It's kind of like when someone dies, all of a sudden they become a great man. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Let's see here. JD Vance, I thought, had a good perspective on this. Let's take a look at this here.
Sir, do you have...
Oh, not plugged in good. Hang on here, get my mic in.
No, you don't. Speaking of Joe Biden, sir, do you have any thoughts on his diagnosis?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people.
Yeah, that's the case. And I've said that. So there's really three issues. There's how he was as president. He stood for a lot of, I believe, evil things and helping to destroy our country. He was, I think, the worst president we've ever had, or close. I really do believe that. And then there's the issue of him, was he really running things or was someone else really running things, and how they hid that. And I remember a lot of us could see it, that he was having issues, but the media, they lied and they covered for him.
And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play. And we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job.
Yeah. And this is one of those things where you see the regime, or the I don't know what you want to call the deep state or the establishment. They do this all the time. They will lie to you, and then eventually, when they no longer can lie, or they don't have a reason to lie anymore, they will basically say, yeah, I guess we did lie, or we weren't telling you the truth, but oh well, that's in the past, let's move on. That's kind of what they did with COVID. That's what they did with Joe Biden. That's what they did with the Ukrainian-Russian war. Remember how they're lying about Putin's dying of cancer 3 years ago? He's got Parkinson's. Russia has no missiles left. They don't have any ammunition. They're fighting with shovels. They're a weak country. And now Russia's winning. Well, what happened? We're lied to. And this is how the media does things. And there's no accountability. It's not like they get deplatformed for lying, for spreading fake news. That's why I have no tolerance for all these people accusing the right of spreading fake news when they are the biggest liars. And the mainstream media is all they are about, is fake news or hiding stuff. And definitely the whole Biden thing, that he was healthy as a tack, sharp as a tack. And, everyone has to run to keep up with him. No, he's been probably dying. He's had cancer at least for 4 years. I don't know if it's at the point when they diagnosed he was dying from it. And you could tell he had a mental decline. It was obvious. So, and we got some more updates on this now. And part of the reason I think they're being honest about this now, meaning the media, is they no longer have to carry his water. They were covering for Biden because they wanted Biden and Harris to win the re-election over Trump. And I think the people in charge, they knew that Biden would probably die his second term. I said that. I said, even if Biden is reelected, he'll probably die in his second term, because he wasn't looking good. If you look at him, he does not look good. And I think that was the plan. It's like, okay, we'll have him step down in the second term, then we'll have our first Black woman president. That was the whole plan. And so the media, to do their part of the plan, they had to hide his physical condition and mental condition. And they ran interference for him. But now Joe Biden's a liability to the Democrats. And I think Dr. Jill, his conniving wife that likes power, I think she's still upset that they forced him out. And she wants Biden. I think she probably had the idea of having Biden run again in 2028, as funny as that sounds. And before this whole announcement of Biden's cancer came out, I saw a lot of stories on the mainstream media, including CNN, that started to really admit that Biden had mental problems and that he was close to being in a wheelchair and all this. So somehow they got a green light from the powers that be in the Democratic Party that it was okay to run these stories. And I think because they consider Biden now a liability and they don't want Dr. Jill, because again, Joe Biden, he's becoming a vegetable. He doesn't make decisions. But Jill, I think, wanted to use Biden to get her in the White House again. And they had to put a kibosh on that. They're like, no, we got to stop this in the tracks. We can't have Joe Biden running around trying to act like he's going to run for president again, because who knows? The Democratic Party, the people that vote in the primary say may vote for him again. And they said, no, there's no way. We got to get rid of him. So they green lighted these stories going out. And we see this is on CNN. And CNN, they used to be the biggest cheerleaders of all the networks for the Democrats and Biden. And they're just starting to publish stuff like, wow, this is happening on CNN. Just like the other day, they had that cancer doctor on CNN basically laugh this idea that, 100 days ago, Biden was perfectly healthy. Then in 100 days, he gets to stage 4 prostate cancer. It's like, no, that doesn't happen that way. And so they had that. And here's something else they had on CNN. So let's take a look at this.
And Jake, you do a great job explaining maybe what the mindset was within the most inner circle of inner circles, including Joe Biden's, that he had this unique ability to beat Donald Trump. He's the one guy who had done it. That may explain at least the thinking among them. But what about Democratic leaders, other elected Democrats? Why didn't they speak up before, June of 2024?
I think the degree to which the team around President Biden was hiding him and sequestering him, mainly starting in the fall of 2023, cannot be overstated.
So this is Jake Tapper. Is that how you pronounce his name? He was the guy talking now. He was the CNN anchor, and he was like point and hiding everything. And now he wrote a book about it, or a ghostwriter wrote it about, looks like we were deceived. It was like, we just didn't have the information. His team was hiding Biden. Well, I'm just a guy in Arkansas and I could see it. I mean, it wasn't hard to see that they were having to lead him off stage. How many clips? I get it. Every once in a while, people, they may have a mistake, they misspeak or whatever. No big deal. People do that. But Joe Biden, he'd be out on stage, not once, multiple times. He'd come running out and he'd hold his hands in a weird way, like someone that has dementia. And he'd just start looking around like he didn't know where he was. And he didn't know how to get off the stage. And they'd have to have someone come get him. That wasn't like one time. That was multiple times. And so, but every time we would bring that up, it's like, oh, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist.
There's a cabinet meeting in October 2023. And then several cabinet members told us for the book, they never saw him again in person for months and months and months. He was kept away from them. And cabinet secretaries we spoke to for the book told us it was weird. One of them did have a meeting with Biden in between that last cabinet meeting of 2023 in October and the debate, and described him as being disoriented and out of it. And I think the degree to which he was being hidden from even their own administration cannot be overstated.
That's pretty amazing admission. And again, these people were basically admitting they lied to you all these years. No sense of shame or accountability. Yeah, I lied to you. Read my book about it. This old man, they hid him away and he couldn't meet with people. And then when he did meet with people, he started his Grandpa Simpson thing. You saw it when he went on The View. He started to do his Grandpa Simpson. He couldn't answer the question. He started talking about irrelevant things. You've heard it when they interviewed him about the documents. Remember that Trump got in trouble with this secret documents, and Hillary had the same issue. Pence did. Biden had all these documents in his garage near his Corvette. And they had the special prosecutor interview Biden. And at the time, the determination was, well, we can't prosecute Biden because he's doesn't have the mental capabilities to stand trial. He's like a child. You know, you don't prosecute someone that has a mental disabled condition. And then a lot of us like, well, why is he running for president again? Oh, you're just a right-wing conspiracy theorist and peddling fake news. He stutters. It's like, what? That was always their go-to. Oh, he stutters, and he always stuttered.
Now, that's not to let anybody off the hook. I mean, this was a scandal and, frankly, a tragedy, a real tragedy that the American people had every right to know about. We all saw some of these moments in front of the camera that were disturbing, but what was going on behind the scenes, as we learned through these more than 200 interviews, was even more disturbing.
Yeah, but CNN, Jake, you guys never reported it. In fact, you attacked people like myself for discussing this. And so now it's rich that they're saying this. It wasn't just one incident. There was multiple incidents. He couldn't do a press conference. All the questions had to be submitted in advance. They had to give him Biden, tell him what to say, and they wrote it out. And he even joked about it, Biden. Well, I guess I'm supposed to call on you first. And it was embarrassing.
Yeah, I'll just add one last thing, which is that, Democratic lawmakers were scared of the White House and retaliation for speaking out.
And Alex, just one more to push forward.
Well, part of the issues of politics, the Biden, he's been in, just how long Biden's been in politics or in the government. It was when I was in first grade. So people call me, you old boomer. Well, I was in first grade when Biden was already, I think, a senator. This guy's been around forever. So Biden had a powerful base along with the Clintons and Jill Biden. And in the political realm, you got to be careful who you upset.
On the subject of being off the hook, because Axios has been talking about this the last few days, your competitors over Politico too. Your book has really started a discussion about how Democrats will need to address this in elections in 2026 and beyond that. So what challenge do you think that poses for current Democrats?
I mean, a lot of these same Democrats that are now admitting that Joe Biden should not have run again, that he had cognitive decline. There's a lot of tape and posts and tweets, attesting that he was up to this job, not just at the time in 2024, but for 4 more years, which is the job he was going to do. So,
yeah. And part of the reason they released this cancer diagnosis. So it's not like I really don't believe that Biden and his family just had this diagnosis like last week. They knew for, I believe, years. The reason they decided to release this now, too, is to try to gain sympathy for Biden, because obviously people feel sorry for people that get cancer. So this is a way to try to distract people. Like, oh, how can we bring that up? That's just, don't you have any sense of decency or dignity? We shouldn't even be talking about Biden's mental and physical state. We got to respect the man.
You are seeing, some try to basically reverse themselves, some try to navigate it, and some just dodging the question altogether. You saw Chuck Schumer on, Casey's show just last week, basically just say, we're looking forward, we're looking forward.
One of the things also, John, if I could say that's really campaign manager in 2008, and then basically retired from politics in 2013 until he was brought in to help Kamala Harris in her 107-day campaign after Biden ultimately dropped out. David Plouffe said to us for the book, never again can we as a party tell voters that they are not seeing what they are witnessing with their own eyes. And I think that's a very important message.
But that's the whole Democrat platform. That's the left. That's if I had to put in a nutshell what the Democrats are about, is trying to get you to believe that your eyes are lying to you in everything. in crime and racial reality. Oh no, you're a racist if you believe what you see. No, you're a racist. When it comes to sex between, like if a guy, with a beard has a dress on, we're supposed to pretend that's a woman. It's like, no, that's not a woman. Well, you're transphobic. So the whole thing, everything they believe in is based on a lie, and trying for you to do this double think, as Orwell called this, that even though you see something different, you have to tell yourself otherwise. Like I'm looking outside now and the grass is green, but if you're a good Democrat, if they told you no, it's blue, then you have to, even though you see it's green, you got to pretend in your mind that it's really blue. That's how they work. So, and part of this I've talked about before, about how the Democrats, they like to try to speak things into existence as kind of this new age philosophy. If they just keep repeating a narrative, maybe it will come into existence. So if everyone just pretended back in the day that Joe Biden was fine, maybe he would be fine. We just all have to pretend. We can't have anyone say anything otherwise. It's sort of like the old fable of the emperor that had no clothes, right? Everyone thought he had just the finest clothes that were wonderful. And then the kid said, no, you're just naked. And that's kind of what we live in. So yeah, that is kind of crazy there. All right. Let's see here. Let me get into some things here. I'll get into briefly the whole, we'll kind of change gears a little. Let me just see if I'm caught up. Thank you guys for being here. And so I got $5, $8 so far today. If we get some up to 50, I'll do another show in the morning tomorrow. But either way, we're doing Wednesday wrap up tomorrow too. All right, let's do some Donald Trump. Let's look at his thing here with this talking about, he had a conversation with Putin yesterday about the war. Just completed my 2-hour call with President Putin of Russia. That's a long time for a call. And I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. Putin's a smart man, and he knows he doesn't want to get on the bad side of Trump. And Russia in general wants to be friendly with the United States, trade with us. They just want us out of this war, us funding Ukraine. So Putin is very respectful to Trump, and he says no without saying no, if that makes sense. Because what Trump had in his idea is that the war would be frozen where it is, the front lines, and they would be a 30-day ceasefire during which they would negotiate a peace. And the idea was the 30-day ceasefire would go on indefinitely, then eventually they would be a peace. The problem with that from Russia's point of view is it's like, well, this doesn't really address our concerns. The reason we're having this war is because we believe Donbass and Crimea are part of our territory. We had an election. The people voted they wanted to be part of Russia, the Russian ethnicity. I know I won't get into the debate, was the election fair or not, but this is their point of view. And from Russia's point of view, that's not negotiable. They're going to keep Donbass and Crimea. That's not negotiable. And if from Zelensky's point of view, it's the opposite. It's like, no, we're not going to have Crimea can't stay with Russia, and Donbass not an inch can go to Russia. So they have two very different views, and they're both very stuck on those views. So the ceasefire from Russia, Ukraine's okay with a 30-day ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. That means a ceasefire without conditions, because that will allow Ukraine to rearm their army, do rotations, get some soldiers some rest, because Russia, you haven't probably seen this much in the news, but they're advancing their attack. They're kind of on the offensive now, and they're having a lot of success. And Ukraine is having some problems. So definitely, it's like a boxer that's being beat up real bad. They want the bell so they can regroup. And Ukraine's getting beat up real bad now. And of course, they want a ceasefire, unconditional, so they can use that to rearm and everything. And Russia's like, no, why would we want to give them that? We're winning. That's not to our advantage. And a ceasefire is not going to solve anything. So how Putin navigate this, instead of just saying, no, we're not going to do a ceasefire, he just said, well, I'll say this. We can have a ceasefire, but we need to have a talk with Ukraine and immediately negotiate what will a ceasefire entail. And Russia, for them to have a ceasefire, we already know what it is because they made it public. They said, okay, as long as Ukraine recognizes Donbass as ours, being Russian, and Crimea being ours, we will agree to a ceasefire because that's their objective. But Ukraine will never agree to that. But so this is a way for Putin to not flat out reject a ceasefire. He said, nah, we'll have a ceasefire. We just have to have a few conditions for the ceasefire, meaning they recognize the territory as ours. And so that is how Putin is dealing with this. And let me just take a look here. I'll close this here. The response from Zelenskyy, because after the call, so what happened before Trump spoke to Putin, he called Zelenskyy. Then he spoke to Putin for 2 hours. That's really a long call for this type of call. And then he called Zelenskyy back. And Zelenskyy obviously wasn't happy with the conversation. And Zelenskyy, right after the Putin-Trump call, meaning Trump called him back, he said, Kiev will not accept any sort of ultimatum by Russia. The ultimatum means Russia saying, yeah, we'll have a ceasefire when you get out of what we consider our territory. Ukraine will not withdraw its troops from anywhere or give up any territory. Ukrainian NATO aspirations are not up for debate. There will be no neutrality, because that's one of the big issues with Russia too, is Ukraine can't join NATO. They have to be a neutral country. And Zelenskyy expects new European sanctions against Russia soon. That's meaningless. They've already done as many sanctions as they can. He asked Trump not to make any decisions about Ukraine without Ukraine. So obviously he was upset because he's feeling Trump is, I think probably Trump is trying to push for a compromise, each side to compromise a little bit, but neither side is willing to compromise is a problem. And Zelenskyy, he wants to frame it as, hey, we try to have peace, but Russia won't, because Russia, they're crazy. Putin is Hitler, wants to take over the world, all that nonsense. So you need to support us, America, with more weapons. And ideally, they would love American troops to go into Ukraine. Trump doesn't want to do that. We're kind of bankrupt, and Trump, I think, wants to get us out of this war. But this is Zelensky's way to try to trap Trump into this war. I suggest, I've always said Trump should say, hey, we did our best. We're getting out of this. We can't, we're not going to fund Russia. We're not going to fund Ukraine. We will help with any peace negotiations, but we just can't afford this anymore. Ukraine's not part of NATO. We have no obligation to get involved in this historical mess. The dispute about the Donbass is not in America's interest. And leave it there. But I don't know, because Trump is all worried about if he cuts off all funding to Ukraine, because Europe's weak. And what if then Russia just goes and takes all of Ukraine? There's tanks in the streets of Kiev, and Trump's worried that will be bad optics based for his presidency. I don't think it really matters. I don't think the American people really care. And people maybe that would be outraged for maybe a week, and then they'd be on to the next news cycle thing. But Trump's worried about that because he doesn't want to be seen as the guy that lost the Ukrainian war. So as I said, I did a video about this a few weeks ago. He's falling into the same trap potentially that LBJ did in Vietnam. LBJ inherited the Vietnam War from Kennedy, and he was worried about, he didn't, for optics, LBJ just didn't want to pull out, and then Vietnam fall to the communists, which happened anyway. But he thought, well, we got to win this war, otherwise it'll look bad to me. And it became a quagmire. So I hope that doesn't happen with Trump, but we will see here. That is the situation here. All right. And another thing that is up, the big beautiful bill, as Trump calls it. What's he call it? Yeah, here we go. Let's take a look at this. I guess it got through committee. Speaker Mike Johnson is talking about this.
Job creators and entrepreneurs and risk takers, the ones that are helping build the economy to employ their neighbors and people in their community. We want to allow them the ability to do that without getting in their way. And so that's what the Republican Party stands for: less government, lower taxes, so we can allow the free market to flourish. And I think that's what we're going to achieve in this bill.
President Trump says no tax on Social Security. Is that going to end up in the bill? No tax on Social Security?
Yes, we're checking all the boxes. He promised no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on, for example, interest on car loans that are made in America. A number of those things are woven into this bill, and we've made all the math work so we can do that.
Yeah, a couple of things. I asked Grok. The no tax on Social Security is not in the bill. Mike Johnson's wrong on that, I believe. And I've checked, and I don't think that's in the bill. What he's doing, Trump, instead, they're going to propose a greater tax exemption. I think it's $4,000 deduction you get if you're 65 or older. So there's nothing on Social Security, which is too bad. It'd be great. No tax on Social Security. No tax on tips, though. That's interesting. That is in the bill. And the big question is, because if you guys don't know, when I get SuperChats or whatever, I got to report that to the IRS, and I get taxed on it. And I asked Grok, I'm like, well, wait a minute, are SuperChats really, they're kind of tips, really, right? And Grok said, yeah, probably, because the definition of a tip, because obviously then what's a tip? Everyone wants their whole job to be a tip then, right? A tip is defined by the IRS as a payment made free from compulsion. That means you don't force someone to do it. So if you're selling, let's say, a product, you're selling your car and for $5,000, you can't claim that, well, that $5,000 is a tip because you're demanding $5,000 for the car. So it's got to be free from compulsion, right? So I guess my super chats, that would fall in that. You guys don't have to do super chats. I'm not mandating it, so that fits that. The customer has unrestricted right to determine the amount. Well, that fits that category. So if you can, I appreciate people send $1, $20, $100. That fits that. The payment is not subject to negotiation or dictated by your employer policy. Yeah. The customer can decide who receives the payment. Yeah. So under this, and Grok says, I hope this happens. So for streamers in general, if you had super chats, rants, all of that would be considered tips. That's how we get our income quite a bit. Now, what I do, like on Substack, where I charge people to get a certain product, because if you subscribe to my Substack, there's a certain amount that I think it's $8 a month. And then you get a certain thing. You get a video every Friday in the roundtable. Those aren't tips. That wouldn't be considered a tip. So it's just kind of interesting. That is in there. So I hope that goes through. That would be good for me for selfish reasons. So that would be good. So, and for other people, I don't know what kind of work you guys do, but there could be, that could be considered tips in your work if you do stuff. No taxes on overtime. This is interesting too. I haven't asked Grok what is considered overtime. Is it any hours over 40 hours a week? I used to work salary, so I didn't get paid hourly. So I don't think that would that wouldn't count then. But if you have an hourly job, maybe every hour you work over 40, then you would get no taxes on that. That'd be really cool. And no taxes on loan interest for American-made cars. I guess, that'd be something, I suppose. I don't think that'd be much of a game changer, but it's a way to help people, to encourage people to buy American-made cars, whatever that means. Because like Subarus and Toyotas, are they American-made? They probably count as it because they have factories here in the United States. So I don't know. We'll have to see what gets through, but I'm always for tax relief. So it looks pretty good. But in general, yeah, this is, I think, going to be an issue. But I don't see the Social Security in there. But I hope it gets through. So I think that goes through. All right, here, let me just see here. Let me see if I thought this. Let's see what we got here. Oh, I just wanted to cover this real quickly. And this got a lot of pushback. It's the whole degree we're controlled by a foreign nation is just outrageous. And even in Arkansas, you got to understand, Arkansas, we are a very Bible Belt Christian state. I looked it up. I think there's fewer than 6,000 Jews in the entire state. Yet we're obsessed on supporting the Jewish ethno-state. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Arkansas puts its money where its mouth is in investing millions in Israeli bonds. Why? Shouldn't Arkansas be investing in like Arkansas projects or American bonds? And so they're going to put their employee retirement system into Israeli bonds in order to support Israel. And as I said, why? Why not invest in America? Why are you proud of being controlled by a foreign country? And it doesn't really resonate with a lot of the younger Republicans. And again, I don't have a problem with Israel, but this idea that our public money should be going to support the state of Israel is just ridiculous. I don't know if maybe Sarah's a Christian Zionist. She thinks if we support Israel, and God will like her better or something. Or she just thinks that because they have a lot of power and a lot of donations, that will help her in her political career. But it's really sickening to see this happening. And it's any country. I don't care what country it was. I would think this was, I mean, just imagine if Arkansas was investing their retirement funds for China or any other country, that'd be considered outrageous. But this is where we are now, and it kind of sucks. So, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap up now. It's been a fun stream, and I want to thank you, Louis, for your power chat. I really do appreciate that. And I want to thank, let me just see, be here. I want to get you all. John, thank you very much for your super chat. Oh, here we go. I just got this here. If ICE had shot the congresswoman who was attacking them, would they get off as the shooter, Ashley Babbitt? That's a good question. Let me get this here. And there was a story. You see her family, the government's paying her family, I believe it's $6 million. $6 million. I think it was that. I'll look that up. If ICE has shot the congresswoman who was attacking them, would they get off as the shooter did with Ashley Babbitt? Yeah, Ashley Babbitt was unarmed. She wasn't a threat. And this black officer, he was incompetent. He had previously been written up for leaving his gun in the restroom. He DEI hired, shot her in the neck and killed her. But because that was politically correct, Joe Biden was fine with that. And I think they praised the guy that murdered her. But yeah, I don't think they would be praising, like the other way around. If a bunch of Antifa or blacks were rioting BLM, they shot an unarmed protester through the neck, they'd be held to pay. But thank you for that. So that was John. Thank you, John. And thank you, Mike, for your super chat. I do appreciate that. And let me just see this because I did have a link to that. 5 million, not 6 million, 5 million. Let me bring this up to this. I'll show you guys here. So they settled, I guess, probably a lawsuit. They're going to pay nearly 5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, the unarmed woman who was shot by that DEI hire, and he didn't get any penalty for that. So good. That I'm glad that happened. It's sad that he wasn't arrested, but you know, during that time is very anti-white, and you don't arrest a black for killing a white, and especially when they're protesting the election. So a good question there, John. That's something to think about. All right, guys, it's been a fun show today. My next show is going to be tomorrow night with Z-Man at 7 p.m. We're going to talk generational politics. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to that. And tonight, if you're part of my Substack, I'll send out a link here later this afternoon, but we will have our roundtable, probably open forum today. We'll talk about that. A lot of stuff to talk about, Biden, Scott Adams, and everything. And it should be some fun. So I'll see you guys tonight, and I'll see you guys tomorrow evening with Z-Man on the Wednesday wrap-up. Thank you, and talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.